welcome to ACAB Radio. This is episode 47. We're your hosts, Jay Lyfer, Kelly Special K Patterson, and we have a very special guest on the show today, Kevin Zeese. How you doing, Kevin?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
All right, everything looks good, sounds good. All right. Kevin Zeese is one of the founders of the Popular Resistance. This is their website, if for people who don't know, right here, popularresistance.org. Head over there. They've got some great stuff. You can also find their podcast, Kevin Zeese and Margaret Flowers, Clearing the Fog, Speaking Truth to Expose the Forces of Greed. Great podcast, great website, a lot of great news on there. There's also a podcast network on there where you can find some really cool podcasts. That quick clip that we just played was a view from the window of the Venezuelan embassy in DC. So that was quite a view from the window. Just seeing, all the support that you guys had out there, and as well as I don't even want to call them counter protesters, but the
mob.
Yeah, the mob, right? But yeah, man, I'm just really excited to have you on the show. I was following that closely as everything was unfolding. Great. And man,
Excellent.
Just my hat's off to you for putting your body on the line and fighting the good fight, standing in solidarity with the people out there in Venezuela to say no to this coup, no war on Venezuela. And so let's start from the beginning, and if you could just give people a rundown of what happened. Say, somebody been living under a rock and doesn't know
Sure.
what transpired. Yeah, I know it all started back in April, but if you can give folks.
Well, first off, thank you for following it and understanding what it was about. You described it very well. And the battle continues in court now. We're facing federal charges. We have on popularresistance.org information about those charges and what we're doing, how we're raising money, because we realize we're going against the U.S. government, which has virtually unlimited funds, and we need to be put on a strong defense. Basically, this started back in April because the United States had been helping the failed coup in Venezuela to take over Venezuelan diplomatic buildings in Washington, D.C. and New York. They took over the mission in New York and the military attaché in D.C. They were about to move on the crown jewel, the Venezuelan embassy located in Georgetown, which is a wealthy neighborhood in Washington, D.C. And they were going to move on that because the Organization of American States, which is a organization that's pretty much under the thumb of the United States. It's a way for the U.S. to dominate Latin America. They had a meeting on April 9th where they changed the rules in order to recognize Guaido as president of Venezuela. They had to change the rules because they could not pass it with the normal rules, which required a 2/3 vote. So they made it a majority vote and barely got that. And so once that happened, the U.S. then ordered the Venezuelan diplomats to the OAS to leave the country. Once those diplomats would leave, that would leave the Georgetown embassy open and unprotected. On April 10th, we started the Embassy Protection Collective the day after that. And we did it with the permission of the Venezuelan embassy, the Venezuelan Foreign Ministry, and the elected government of Venezuela. They gave us the keys. They showed us the building. They knew that we would stay after they left. And we started to build a movement to protect the embassy. We held forums every night for the first 2 weeks on various issues from AFRICOM to Honduras to Venezuela, we had John Kiriakou, the former CIA agent, speak about regime change from the view from inside the CIA. Pretty remarkable. He was doing that on the night before the OAS ambassadors were scheduled to leave. So we expect for the come that presentation about regime change.
I hate
building where
I hate to interrupt you here. I'm sorry. Hold on. Facebook's
Okay.
Facebook's giving us an issue here. It looks like it froze
That's too bad.
and didn't post. So I'm actually gonna have to start this over. I'm so sorry, man. That's terrible.
Hopefully,
So
it means we'll get more view. Hopefully, some viewers saw it and will show up.
yeah, so that actually didn't even post. So I'm gonna
Okay, so where is it? I can link to him on my Facebook page too. Where on Facebook is it?
yeah, that'd be great. It's ACAB Radio is the name of the page.
ACA.
ACAB Radio. So I'm gonna go live right now, and then you'll be able to
Okay.
share the live stream out. So that would be great.
Okay.
I'm
All right.
sorry about that, man. All right, one more time.
It's all
All
right.
right, take two. Ready? Here we go.
Maybe.
Yeah. The good thing is I have that all recorded on the laptop, but it just didn't go live. Okay. Let's try this one more time. Okay. That looks like we're live now. Here we go. All right. Welcome to ACAB Radio. This is episode 47. We're your hosts, Jay Lyfer, Kelly Special K Patterson, and we got a very special guest on the show today for you guys, Kevin Zeese. How you doing, Kevin?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing fantastic. Kevin Zeese is one of the founders of the Popular Resistance organization. That's popularresistance.org. You can find their website. Let me pull it up here real quick. Here it is. They've got it's an amazing news source, really some great coverage, as well as their podcast you can find there. Kevin Zeese and Margaret Flowers, Clearing the Fog, Speaking Truth to Expose the Forces of Greed. And there's a whole Popular Resistance podcast network on there where you can find some great podcasts if you're looking for some cool stuff to listen to. So yeah, I've been following what's been going on with Venezuela for a long time now, but especially the Protection Collective that you guys formed and watching what all transpired at the embassy. And I just want to say my hat's off to you. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for putting your body on the line and for standing in solidarity with the Venezuelan people and just, saying no war on Venezuela, no more coups. That clip that we just played was a view from the window from inside the Venezuelan embassy in D.C. I can only imagine what that must have felt like to be inside there and putting up the type of resistance that you guys were doing. So if you could just I don't know, briefly describe to somebody who may been living under a rock and not have heard what was transpiring over these past couple months over there in Washington, D.C.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And thank you for monitoring that campaign, which continues now in court. We have charges and a strong defense team to go against the unlimited resources of the U.S. government. So if you go to popularresistance.org, you can see on the top slider, a top story, information about our defense and what we're planning on doing with regard to that. We hope to turn the tables on the federal government and make this really a show a trial that shows that the U.S. coup has failed. So this began in early April because the U.S. had been giving the U.S. Venezuelan diplomatic buildings and missions to the the coup that had failed. And they have given over the diplomatic mission in New York. They've given over the military attaché in Washington, D.C., and allowed these coup plotters who had failed in Venezuela to take over those buildings. And the golden jewel in the crown was the embassy in Georgetown, a very wealthy neighborhood in Washington, D.C., that we wanted to help to protect. So on April 9th, the Organization of American States, which the U.S. dominates and uses to enforce the Monroe Doctrine that lets the U.S. dominate Latin America, voted to recognize Juan Guaido as president. They only did that because they changed their rules on recognizing governments. That usually requires a 2/3 vote. They could not achieve that, and so they changed the rules to a majority vote, and they barely achieved that. But once Guaido was recognized, then the U.S. ordered the Venezuelan diplomats to the OAS to leave the country. They had 2 weeks. Normally they have months to do it, but they gave them 2 weeks.
Right.
And so the diplomats, as they're getting ready to leave, we wanted to make sure we were in the embassy. We talked to the embassy, the Venezuelan embassy staff, and the foreign ministry, and they supported us being there. They gave us permission to be there. We were standing in as embassy protectors, interim protectors, because normally what happens in these situations is when diplomatic relations are broken, there's an empty U.S. embassy in Caracas, there's an empty Venezuelan embassy in D.C. They have a protecting power. The U.S. wants Switzerland, Venezuela wants Turkey to be the protecting power to make sure those embassies are protected. So we wanted to help that happen, and so we wanted to hold the embassy and prevent it from being taken over by the failed coup operatives. We held forums every night on a wide range of issues: AFRICOM, Honduras, Venezuela. We had musical events, cultural events. We did an event with John Kiriakou, a former CIA official, talking about regime change, the view from inside the CIA. He was doing that from inside an embassy that was basically facing a U.S. coup. So really interesting to have a CIA official talking about what regime change looks like from inside
Right,
the CIA in an embassy about to be taken over by the U.S. So
right.
pretty remarkable. But anyway, so things started to really change. We expected, by the way, the police, the law enforcement come the next day because that was the day the OAS diplomats were leaving. And we thought as soon as the diplomats came that they would come to take us out. They didn't do that. They took a different attack. April 30th, there was another coup attempt, the third or fourth coup attempt by Guaido in Venezuela. It failed miserably, but that brought out the coup supporters. A mob of coup supporters came out and were allowed to surround the embassy. The Secret Service, which is responsible for protecting embassies, worked with the mob, allowing them to get onto embassy property right up to the building, put up tents, bang on doors, break into the building, threaten us, assault people coming to the building, stop food from getting in, just all sorts of mob activities to try to intimidate us into leaving the building voluntarily.
And that all started at the end of April, like you said, after the failed coup attempt by Guaido.
April 30th.
Yes, right. April 30th. Yeah. And then that's when they created that blockade, which, made it hard for you guys to get food in. I mean, there were no more coming and going as you had the weeks prior.
That's right. Exactly. We were able to come and go easily with no problem. Go out to dinner, go out get food, get new clothes. But then it changed on the 30th, on April 30th, when the coup failed. The opposition came out. The supporters of the coup came out, the mob, and they assaulted people who tried to bring food to us. They assaulted our supporters. And usually when our supporters were assaulted, the police would arrest our person who was assaulted, not the mob who assaulted them.
Yeah.
And so it was just a really amazing experience to be basically in a siege. And we had a lot of supporters outside, as you saw from that video you showed. We had a lot of supporters outside, and often our supporters outnumbered the pro-coup mob. but still they were there and they were given the priority position right up against the building.
Yeah.
So whenever we try to bring food in through people coming in, they'd be blocked. Throwing food up would be arrested. People trying to put food into a bag that we pulled up to the second floor. We did that a few times successfully, but they would try to block that. So it was a major battle to just get food. And then they turned the electricity off. Then they turned the water off. And they were really doing. It was funny. It was sad. It was like everything that we saw happening in Venezuela with the U.S. economic war.
Yeah.
Destroying the electric grid, which meant they couldn't get water. The economic sanctions, which made food expensive or scarce. All these things were happening to us on a smaller level, and this created more solidarity with us and the Venezuelan people.
Yeah, you can definitely see
confused.
You could definitely see the parallels between the tactics that the government uses. I mean, the same exact thing with the power outages and, cutting y'all's power and stopping food, like they do through the sanctions. Yep. And, so I do want to play a quick clip of showing the police's tactics, how they actually cut the rope one time. And News to Share's Ford Fishers was able to catch that, thankfully. So let me play that real quick. There they go, they just cut the rope. Yeah, that was unbelievable. I also want to show this clip real quick of Veterans for Peace President Jerry, who was assaulted for trying to bring y'all some food. So he has some cucumbers there. And here's the right-wing mob surrounding him. He throws a cucumber. And the police actually arrested him.
Yeah, as you mentioned, he's the one being arrested.
Yeah, unbelievable. Not only arrested, look, they manhandle him, throw him to the ground, and essentially beat him bloody.
Well, it's the government taking care of veterans.
Yeah.
Clear him out! Get out! Move!
And this isn't even regular police. This is the feds. This is Secret Service.
That was a Secret Service.
Yeah.
That's right.
Attacking a war veteran for trying to deliver food. There he is.
Keep backing up.
Bloody and bruised.
Turn around, sir, and back up.
Just unbelievable. All for the crime of throwing a cucumber.
Cucumber, right. They charged him with throwing a missile, and then they changed that to assaulting a police officer. Then they dropped the charges. That was Jerry Condon, who's the president of Veterans for Peace, a longtime activist, really great activist, and he's been a longtime Latin American activist. And in fact, I was in Venezuela with him earlier this year.
Nice.
And that was the last day. That was the last day the Secret Service, by the way, was on the job. After they attacked Jerry Condon, they were removed, and they were replaced by the Metropolitan Police.
Right, DC.
And that first video you showed was actually the Metropolitan Police cutting the rope to the food going up.
Yeah.
That was the first time. That's the first time the police had actually taken action themselves to block food.
Because their official line was, "We're not stopping food from getting in," and this was the first real proof that came out that they actually, in fact, were.
That's right, and I didn't do it again after that. I think they made a mistake then. That was their first day on the job almost, and I think they were still figuring out how to deal with this mob that was trying to block us, and because they were told basically the mob was the U.S. government. I mean, we overheard a shift change in the garage. We were in the garage. We could hear in the driveway of the garage a police shift change, and they were telling the police that were coming in. The old police were telling the new police that the people outside support the Juan Guaido and are basically the U.S. government. That's what they said. They're basically the U.S. government. And then they said that people across the street are peace and justice activists. And here's what they said. And they're funded by Russia or somebody.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
It's unbelievable, right?
Unbelievable. And so they saw those guys as allies, and they didn't know what to do. Now, a couple days after that, Jesse Jackson came to the embassy, and he was able to help get 4 bags of food up. Through it was a big fight. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah, even then, I couldn't believe you guys got it up. I mean, that was a hell of a fight they had to put up. Yeah.
Yeah, if you saw the video, you saw Jamu Baraka, the vice presidential candidate for the Green Party, Paul Pumphrey, another Green Party member who is with Friends of the Congo, and other of our activists fighting with a coup supporter trying to grab the rope, wrapping the rope around his arm and all. It was a major fight, but we finally did get 4 bags up.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably a key moment where the government decided that they couldn't intimidate us out of the embassy.
I think that was a turning point for sure. That's when they realized we need to do something. We got to get these people out of here because now our tactics aren't working. Yeah.
The tactics weren't working, plus the media was breaking through. And if the media started covering this, we would get multiply the number, 10 times the number of people out there.
Right.
The issue of why are they doing this? I thought Maduro was a dictator. Why isn't it? But the truth would come out that Maduro actually is not a dictator.
Yeah, that's why they didn't cover it for sure. They didn't want the truth to come out.
Exactly, because all the truth would have come out. That's right. They want to keep their lie going.
Yeah.
And they don't want us to because if you look at on the embassy on our website, Popular Resistance, we have the Declaration of the Embassy Protection Collective, and we lay out how Maduro was elected, how he got 67% of the vote. There were 5 other candidates and parties in the election. There was about 50% turnout. It was monitored by 150 election observers, found to be democratic under international law. The election observers said he was legitimately elected, and that's not what the government wants us, the U.S. government or media wants us to hear.
Yeah.
And they also don't want to hear about the Vienna Convention, how it's our job as the host country to protect the embassy, not to invade it. They don't want that being told, and they didn't want being told that Guaido's self-appointment violated Venezuelan law, violated the Venezuelan constitution, is not recognized by the UN. All their lies in our declaration of the Embassy Protection Collective, all their lies are pierced. And so the media did not want to cover this because their lies would be shown too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, CNN just recently reported that Guaido was elected president, so.
I know, I can't believe that.
It's just unbelievable.
He didn't run for president. I know, it's bizarre.
Yeah.
In January, CNN, the lies are just so deep. And sadly, it impacts even people like Bernie Sanders, who should know better. Bernie Sanders opposes the coup, opposes intervention, but he says Maduro's a dictator who is violating human rights, who's shooting at his own people, and he says we should have a new election in Venezuela, this time with election observers. And there were election observers.
He was also
Sanders, wake up.
Yeah, he was also in support of the humanitarian aid, which who wants to accept aid from Elliot Abrams, you know what I mean, who's got a proven track record of not only lying to Congress, but using exactly that, aid shipments to smuggle in weapons to countries that they're trying to do coups in. So,
and it was a paltry symbolic aid of $60 million. The Venezuelan government gives hundreds of millions of dollars in aid every month to their people through the CLAP food distribution program, which provides 6 million families with food, basic requirements for kitchens each month at a cost of like 15 cents a box.
Which they're now trying to sanction that program as well, aren't they?
The U.S. is trying to sanction that program. It just shows how they really care about humanitarian issues when they're sanctioning a humanitarian program in Venezuela.
Exactly. They don't care about starving Venezuelans if they're going to be cutting off food to them, right? Yeah.
Exactly. This is really about U.S. regaining control over Venezuela, which they lost when Hugo Chavez was elected in 1998 and became president in 1999. U.S. has lost control of a country they controlled for 100 years. Venezuela has shown that it can do well without the U.S. You can break from imperialism and do well. And that example is not acceptable. Plus, the U.S. wants to get control of, everyone knows, Venezuela has the most oil reserves in the world. They also have the most diamond and gold reserves in the world. They have the fifth most gas reserves. They have massive quantities of fresh water, which is becoming a very important commodity. And they have lots of minerals that are essential for electronics and for weapons. And so the U.S. not only wants to end the example of Venezuela being successful without the United States, they also want to get control of those incredible amount of resources that makes Venezuela a very wealthy country.
Absolutely.
That's what this is really about. That's what this is really about.
It is about the threat of a good example, and that's why anytime a socialist country tries to press back, there's sanctions, there's anything they can do to sabotage that government, for sure.
It's not always socialist. It's interesting because like Iran, for example, is not a socialist country. It's a theocracy. It's a democracy, but controlled by religious leaders, and it's not a socialist country at all. But they've been facing sanctions since 1979. And the real issue is not socialism. The real issue is independence from the United States. In many ways, Venezuela is still a capitalist country. 70% of its economy is still capitalist. So it's not really a socialist country. It's moving toward socialism. I would say Norway and some of those northern European countries have more socialist programs than Venezuela does. The real issue is Venezuela dared to show its independence and refuses to give the U.S. corporations control of their natural resources.
I think banking comes into it too, the IMF and, the World Bank. But I do want to touch on some of the dangerous precedents that this sets, not only the invasion of the embassy and violating international law and the Vienna Convention, as you stated, really now makes all embassies all around the world, even American embassies, at risk, right? But also just the precedent of saying this democratically elected president is no longer the president. This is who we recognize as president. So I don't know who, the Donald Trump or, thinks that they are saying they can determine who the president is. What's to stop, say, Vladimir Putin from declaring a new president in Ukraine, or you know what I'm saying, or Iran saying this guy's not the president in Iraq anymore, this guy's going to be the president. Like if any other country did that, Americans be like, what the fuck, that's crazy. But since it's America doing it, they're like, oh yeah, this is totally normal.
It's actually not a new precedent, because at the time that we were carrying on so much about having a democratically elected government in Iraq, they were basically telling Palestine that they couldn't have the democratically elected government that they had voted for.
Right.
So, I mean, it's a little more in your face right now, but it's not really new.
That's what's interesting about it. You're right. This is much more overt. I mean, many ways, the Ukraine coup that occurred under Obama was very overt. I mean, that was one of the most overt and obvious coups. But many people in the United States still don't recognize the U.S. did a coup there. But it was clearly a coup.
Oh, yeah.
But under Trump, it's just gotten more overt. And, with someone like Bolton and Abrams in charge of the foreign policy in Venezuela, Trump is being made into a fool. I mean, he talked about military going into Venezuela militarily, but there's no support for that. And he's been open about wanting the oil. It's like crazy. I mean, it's so embarrassing. But now what's new about this coup is the coup fails in Venezuela, and to keep the coup going, they go to the United States and they try to take over diplomatic buildings and embassies in order to create a government, a competing government outside of Venezuela. A charade Venezuelan government that can plot the coup further with the United States in the Venezuelan embassy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing when you have a coup and the new government takes over the embassy. That's one thing.
Yeah.
But you have a coup that fails. You have a coup that fails, and the attempted coup makers take over the government. That's a different thing.
And to turn the embassy into essentially a coup plotting center, it's just
exactly.
It's crazy.
It's very sad, and I'll tell you one of the most interesting things we learned after it was over. There was a video done that showed that this was a strategy the United States was using, not just in Georgetown, but also in other countries where Venezuelan embassies were attacked in other countries. The same tactics, same signs, SOS Venezuela, same blocking of food, same effort to starved the embassy staff out. Social movements came and protested against it. The embassy staff stayed. They were defeated in those other countries. But the same day, that April 30th, May 1st time period, the same day you saw these same attempts. This is the new strategy in the United States. You can't win in the country, so go outside the country and take over their embassy buildings. Very interesting.
Yeah, just crazy. I did want to touch on the police response. So you did mention how you guys did over here. I read that from Alexander Rubinstein. If people are interested, he's written some great articles for Mint Press News. If I can pull one up here real quick.
Yeah.
So
Alex was one of the reporters that was inside the embassy, along with Anya Parampil from the Gray Zone Project.
Yeah.
They were both inside the embassy until the 2 days before we were arrested. So they stayed almost the whole time and reported from inside the embassy. We also had really good coverage from Telesur, RT. Of course, the U.S. corporate media didn't show up at all until we were arrested. Then they reported 4 people arrested at the Venezuelan embassy without the context of what really happened for 37 days.
Yeah, all they report on is the arrest, right? Just crazy.
Yeah.
So here's a few of the better articles written. Mint Press News, Popular Resistance. Head over there if you want to learn more. Also, there's some great Twitter threads from Alexander Rubinstein, your Twitter as well. This was a great article, DC Media Group, with an interview with the final 4. That was great. Venezuelan embassy protectors experienced scary nights but persevered. I thought that was a great interview. I do want to
DC Media Group is a good website for people who want to know about protest movements in Washington, D.C. DC Media Group's been covering protests since Occupy, and they regularly cover our work and other groups' works to stand up for economic, racial, environmental justice as well as peace. So they're a really important group to cover, DC Media Group.
Absolutely. So the Embassy Protection Collective was mostly you guys at Popular Resistance, Code Pink, Answer Coalition, and others. I mean, it was something like 50-something people, I believe.
That's right.
So the Answer Coalition did put together a quick little video I wanted to play. I thought it was pretty good. So
sure.
Let me just play that real quick.
Hi, I'm talking to you from the Venezuelan Embassy with the Embassy Protection Collective. The authorities just illegally turned off our electricity.
We are here to uphold international law and to tell the United States government they cannot support coups around the world.
The opposition has engaged in extremely violent, bigoted, racist, sexist tactics in order to intimidate us.
¿Cómo te llamas tú? Ahí, toma foto. Pues eso es más bonito que tú. Pues yo mañana voy a ser tan bonito y blanco y tú mañana vas a ir niña fea, hijo de puta. Un día la vas a pagar, maricón.
They're using the same strategy as the United States. They think very similarly. The United States sanctions are designed to cause poverty and starvation. And in the same manner, they're trying to starve us out basically by preventing people from throwing food up.
We ask you to let us through because we are here to bring supplies and food.
We're witnessing a massive violation of law. And again, it's not just these right-wing thugs across the street. This could not be happening without the complicity of Secret Service and other police departments right here in the nation's capital. The U.S. government, the Secret Service, have violated every conceivable law, international law, national law, and D.C. code. So they resort to thuggery. They shut off the lights or they shut off the utilities. As you can see right up here, Medea, they're showing strobe lights into the eyes of people who are peacefully inside. That's a non-lethal weapon, but it is a weapon. And Secret Service is letting them do all of that right now.
The people of Venezuela have stood in solidarity and strength against these attacks. We're going to do the same thing here. We're not leaving. We're going to resist. We're going to stand in solidarity with the Venezuelan people and the elected government of Venezuela. We're still here, making love over fear. When the lines are drawn, we're still here. We're still here, making it perfectly clear. When the lines are drawn, we're still here.
Solidarity, people, stay strong.
Yeah, that was a great video. I'm not sure if you could hear that, but it was the Answer Coalition's video, kind of like an explainer video, and it had you at the beginning when the lights were cut off back in May 9th, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was a great video. Just wanted to show people that in case they hadn't seen it.
Well, you know, it was an amazing moment, really, to do what we did with the people outside joining us as the Embassy Protection Collective outside the embassy, and the people who stayed inside. We had, at some nights, up to 70 people spending the night. We shrunk it to 4 after food and electricity and water were cut off. We realized to stay the number of months that we might have to stay. We were prepared to stay for a month or 2 more if necessary. We needed to have less people so that our resources could be spread more thinly and last longer. And so that's what we did. But what was really heartening for us was the response we got from Venezuelan people in Venezuela. Mm-hmm. People would send us messages, videos. They had a Solidarity Day. The social movements in Venezuela had a Solidarity Day with the Embassy Protection Collective. They're holding signs, Margaret, you're a hero, Adrian, you're a hero, you know, and really it was just powerful. And then for the foreign minister and the vice foreign minister and embassy staff and even President Maduro to be saying in their social media that they supported what we were doing, they thanked for what we were doing, that it was changing the debate in Venezuela. People were not seeing people in the U.S. as indifferent or uncaring any longer. Mm-hmm. They realized that people in the United States actually cared about what their government was doing to them. And that really changed the whole perspective of people in the United States willing to put themselves at risk for them.
So were you able to see that while you were in there, or did you not see that kind of stuff until you got out? Because I know they cut power, so you guys had to bring in like battery packs and whatnot. So did you see that when you were in there?
We had limited power, and so we didn't see everything. We saw a lot when we got out, but we saw some of it. We would we had a couple of cars in the garage that we could charge our phones on.
Oh, cool.
So while we couldn't be on the phone looking at video all the time. We looked at it some. We had made the mistake earlier in the month. We thought the police were coming the next day, so we put our luggage and our computers and other stuff into a car and drove it away.
Oh no!
So we were stuck with our phones. Not even all of us had our chargers. We had like one pair of clothes. It was like, oh my gosh! So we were stuck for a couple of weeks there without any of that material because we thought the police were already coming. And so we had lost all that. But when we were charging our phone on the car, we also opened the hood up and cooked food on the engine because we had no heat.
Man, yeah, you guys got really
on the engine.
You got really creative. I saw a rig you guys had on the roof to collect rainwater. It was just impressive.
We had 2 rigs on the roof to collect rainwater. We had a solar cooker on the roof. Nice. On the night before we were arrested, David Paul, one of the final 4, an activist from California, he built a toilet for us because we didn't have any plumbing. And so we would, rather than going to the bathroom on a newspaper, he actually built a toilet. He found a broken toilet in the garage, took the top of it off and built a wall of bricks around it and put a bag inside so we could go to the bathroom.
Oh, wow.
On his homemade toilet.
That's impressive.
I didn't get to see that, by the way, until Carlos Vecchio, the fictional ambassador from the Guaido coup, came into the embassy and they did a video of all the damage we were doing in the embassy. And one of the pictures of damage was this toilet that David had made and we had in the garage. And so that's when I first saw the toilet, because he had done it the night before we were arrested.
Oh man. Yeah, just
And
great stuff. This is something.
And by the way, we were arrested, right after breakfast. They called. They had come 2 nights before, and broken the front door. They were afraid to come into the embassy. They asked us to voluntarily leave. We refused. After 45 minutes of back and forth debate about why we were there legally and how coming in would violate the Vienna Convention, put U.S. embassies at risk, escalate conflict with the U.S. and Venezuela, which involves escalating conflict with China and Russia, since they support Venezuela. That crossing that threshold and violating the Vienna Convention was a very big step that they need to really consider carefully. We urged them to go away, go talk to their superiors, and rethink this approach. I told we would come out voluntarily when there is a protecting power agreement, a mutual protecting and power agreement.
Yeah.
So the U.S. Embassy was protected by Switzerland, and the Venezuelan Embassy was protected by Turkey. That was being negotiated at the time. If they had waited a few more days, that could have been resolved, and we would have left voluntarily.
Yeah.
But then the day they arrested us, they called the morning. Amazing, my phone was on, which is unusual. It wasn't usually on. My phone was on, and they called and said, "We're going to come into the building. We have an arrest warrant. Come out now, or you'll be arrested." And then I said, "I'm going to call my lawyer." And so we called our lawyer and our friends, our allies. We let people know what was going on. And they, rather than coming in the door they had already opened, all they had on that was some plastic handcuffs. They could have cut them and walked in. They used a battering ram to break into a basement door. I don't understand the rationale for that. But more than 100 police, many in paramilitary gear, came in to arrest us, even though we had said in writing that we would, while we would not voluntarily leave, we would not resist arrest. If they're going to come and arrest us, we're not going to blockade ourselves in. We're not going to run around the building. We're not going to, fight. We have no weapons. We would, not resist arrest, but we would not voluntarily leave.
Yeah.
So there's no reason for them to have 100 cops and many in military gear. We said we're not going to resist, but they did that because they wanted to, I don't know, make a show of it for some reason. I think it was a big mistake. I think it'll come back and hurt them.
They like any opportunity they can to play with their toys, is what it really amounts to.
Right.
Yeah. So what did they actually charge you guys with?
That battering ram shook the whole building, I'll tell you that. That was shaking the whole building.
Yeah. So what were the charges that they actually put against you guys?
That we were preventing their protective function, which was amazing. They didn't charge us with trespass, which is interesting. They didn't charge us with unlawful entry. I guess they recognized that we were there legally with the permission of the government, the elected government. They charged us with, preventing protection of the embassy, which is just a joke because, as you saw in those videos, they were not protecting the embassy.
No.
They were allowing the embassy to be destroyed by these right-wing mob. And so the reality was, calling us as not protecting the embassy is almost the perfect case for us, because we want to be able to say we were the embassy protectors and we were doing that job.
Right. Yeah, I mean, just seeing them. I mean, I thought the gig was up that first night you're talking about, where they broke in the front door, and they had, ironically, they had the rescue shirts on, like they're in there to rescue somebody. But anyways, yeah, I thought the gig was up then, and then they end up coming through the back door with the battering rams. That's just insane.
Exactly.
So there were two other interviews I wanted to plug. Anya Parampil was on. Yeah, she was on Media Roots Radio. That was a great interview. And Alexander Rubinstein was on the Mintcast, which is Mint Press News' new podcast. So for anybody who wants to hear more, they can definitely check that out. So what's going on now with the legal battle? Where's it going to go from here?
Well, our next court date is July 9th. The unusual thing that happened was when we were arraigned, the first hearing is the arraignment, where you plead not guilty. And when we were arraigned, we were told we'd have to decide whether to go with a magistrate, which is a lower level judge, or a actual federal judge, and it would be up to us to choose. And we were going to choose a federal judge, but then what happened was the chief judge of the U.S. District Court decided she wants the case. And so we have the chief judge as our judge. Now, she's interesting. I can't gauge whether this is good news or bad news. She has a history of being a pretty detailed-oriented judge that really I could see from our one meeting with her in a courtroom that she controls her courtroom very well. She's an Obama appointee. Has a mix. She used to work as the general counsel for the Judiciary Committee on the Senate, and she did that when the Patriot Act was being passed, so she's involved in helping write the Patriot Act. So she's an interesting judge, but she's taken the case on. Our next court date is July 9th. That'll be a status conference to decide where we are. We expect the government to offer some kind of plea bargain, but if it involves a guilty plea, we will not take it. The only way that we will agree to some kind of plea bargain is if we are not pleading guilty, because we're not guilty. We were there legitimately, and we were there as interim embassy protectors with the permission of the Venezuelan government that was elected last May. And their foreign ministry has said we have all the legal support, all the protection that the law allows for the Venezuelan government, they give to us. And so we had their support. So how this will proceed, I think it's going to be interesting. There'll be a lot of fights along the way. That's why we have on the Popular Resistance website a call for people to support the Embassy Protection Collective by donating to our legal fund. Mm-hmm. We have a good legal team. We have 2 appointed lawyers and 2 retained lawyers. They're all working together. And our goal is to tell our story truthfully, that we were there as the legal interim protectors for the Venezuelan government, and that we were not breaking any laws. Mm-hmm. And so the government, U.S. government, of course, has unlimited resources, and we don't know what they're going to do yet, but we need to be prepared for essentially a war with the U.S. government. And we see this as a forum for us to make our case that we were protecting the embassy and doing it lawfully, and that the coup was illegitimate.
So you want this to go play out in court because you do want to challenge the legality of all of this, right?
No question. Yes.
Absolutely.
Unless they dismiss the charges, we're going to very likely go to trial. Mm-hmm. And we do get a jury trial. The charges are serious enough. We get up to a year in jail and up to a $100,000 fine. And because if a charge is more than 6 months in jail, you have the right to a jury. So we do have the right to a jury trial.
Awesome. So if everybody, if you're able to, please consider donating on Popular Resistance website to their legal fund, as well as GoFundMe. I saw that you shared on your Twitter for one of the individuals delivering food.
That's right.
Who was injured delivering food.
That's right.
Yeah, because numerous people were assaulted. There were women from Code Pink who were assaulted. It was truly a violent right-wing mob out there.
We had an older guy who was who was actually disabled, trying to deliver toothbrushes and toothpaste to us, and he was attacked by the mob, and he was arrested for assault, and he was injured. And so that's another case. The case that you're talking about, if you go to my Facebook page, you'll see on the top story about this guy, Jason, who was someone who had our back when we were in the embassy. He tried to bring us food, and he was attacked by the mob twice, injured. He's been out of work for more than a month because of his injuries, and he's had hospital bills. And so we're trying to raise money to help him as well as help raise money for our legal defense. So, and it was very nice of him today to express his appreciation for the work we've done. We've raised almost $3,000 for him, so awesome. He really appreciates that's been done for him. He's a good anarchist activist in Washington, D.C.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love seeing the community come together, whether it's GoFundMe or whatever resource you can to help some members of our community pull through times like these, especially when, they were doing it for selfless reasons, right? Is there anything else before we wrap it up here?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned selfless reasons, because people may have noticed recently there was a audio tape that was leaked of Secretary of State Mike Pompeo talking to the presidents of Jewish organizations in New York City. And it's amazing that he gives these NGOs detailed information that he does, but part of the detailed information was to talk about Venezuela. And he said that it has been a real hard time keeping the opposition working together. That's been a public facade that they put out, that it's unified and opposed to Maduro. that's not really, they're really having a hard time keeping them together. That in fact they're not working for the interests of the people, but for themselves. You mentioned self-interest.
Oh, for sure.
In fact, Alex Rubenstein did an article in Press News
Yeah.
about the mob outside the embassy,
Yeah.
who were some had security clearance, some were tied to the military-industrial intelligence complex.
Yeah,
of the
Raytheon
United States.
employees and
Exactly.
employees
So
from
they
the
were not
World
acting,
Bank.
That
Yeah.
mob was not acting in their self-interest.
Yeah.
In the public interest, they were acting in their self-interest. The same is true, according to Pompeo, with the opposition in Venezuela. They're acting for their self-interest as well, and you can't keep them unified. So it sounds like even they recognize the coup's not going well. I just saw yesterday that Carlos Vecchio, the fictional ambassador, is being investigated by the Department of Justice, the U.S. Department of Justice, for embezzling $7 million of the humanitarian aid that was supposed to go to Venezuela. So he's under investigation. He's now the person they let into the embassy. He's already wanted in Venezuela. He can't go back to Venezuela without being arrested because he has been part of a violent effort there. It's caused scores of deaths. So he's fled Venezuela, and he's now under investigation by the Department of Justice in the United States. He's just a bad apple, but he's the fictional ambassador of a failed coup who's now using that embassy to plot regime change against his own country.
You know, it's just been failure after failure for the opposition. This has been one of the, I mean, definitely the sloppiest coup in my lifetime. There have been there have been a few, but I haven't paid as close attention as I have to this one. It's just unbelievable. So like, I really wouldn't be surprised if, you know, a member of our intelligence agencies, or we utilize some other state intelligence agencies, and they, you know, off Guaido, because his value to our government is certainly dwindling. He's not, you know, coming through like he promised he would. You know, he promised that the military over there would defect and support him, and it's just not happening. He hasn't delivered, you know. So I wouldn't be surprised if they bump him off and try to pin it on Maduro just to justify further intervention.
He is that's been talked about by many people, and he is an abject failure. It came out recently that he travels with an astrologer who uses tarot cards to predict the future of his politics and of Venezuela. So that's the U.S. president in waiting, the puppet that they want to put in power so they can control the resources of Venezuela. So this is an embarrassing coup attempt, but U.S. is not giving up. And I think as long as John Bolton and Elliott Abrams are in office, we're going to continue to see this as an ongoing problem, as we see in Iran as well, where John Bolton also wants a war. So John Bolton's a disaster for U.S. foreign policy, and I hope Trump has the sense to get rid of him.
Yep, absolutely. I hope so too. So we are running a little over here. So is there anything else you want to say wrapping this up?
No, just urge people to go to popularresistance.org, sign up for our daily digest. We're hoping to organize a national demonstration in September at the UN. And so people should be planning to come to that. It's not just about Venezuela, but about U.S. interventions, U.S. economic war, sanctions. The U.S. violation of international law is going to be the focus of that. So sign up for our daily digest at popularresistance.org. You'll get great news every day. It's better than the New York Times.
For
10
sure.
or 15 articles, one paragraph each, and you can get more detail if you want. And then get involved in these projects. We need people to get active. Movements win when you have a mass movement. And we need to keep building this into a mass movement. So I appreciate your coverage.
No problem. Thank you for taking the time to come on. I was curious if you all at the Popular Resistance are supporting the March on the Pentagon event in October.
No question.
Cool.
Oh, no question. Yes, Cindy Shea and I have been active allies before she was well known. When she was just had her son killed in Iraq and was a Gold Star mother before she became an activist. I got to know her then, and I've been working with her ever since. And so we're big supporters of the March on the Pentagon action in October at the White House.
Cool. All right. Thanks again, Kevin. Hopefully we can have you on
again
sometime.
Look forward to it. Thanks for having me on. All right. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
You too. All right. If I could just close this out real quick. All right, cool. Good stuff. I do want to, before we get into the police-related news, there's a lot of it this week.
Shit. A 3-hour show.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. So I'm going to play a quick clip here just so that I can share this into some police accountability groups now. So we played those. Oh, here we go.
Few seconds to start. All right, we are live. We are live here with Kay and Aminta, Embassy Protectors. Right now, we're here across the street from the embassy. There are some supporters, some of our supporters and Embassy Protector supporters across the street mixed in with the fascist thugs. And then upstairs, there's Embassy Protectors. So, Kay, Aminta, what happens?
Yeah, so water, electricity have been cut off in the building, and food is not being denied, but the police are essentially using the opposition to deny food to the people inside and protecting the opposition. So Aminta and I made an attempt to hop over that wall right there and get these backpacks into a bag that they would pull up. And we were down there, we jumped down, we were placing them in the bags, and we were attacked.
I mean, Matthew, he seems to alternate between both names. He's been on the opposition side for weeks now, posing as homeless, but we know that he actually isn't homeless. He attacked me. I mean, this man is huge. I'm 5'2". Why is it acceptable that a grown man is attacking somebody of my stature? I think that's disgusting. I think that is assault. It is horrible in the way he tried grabbing my backpack, pulling it, and I had to do everything possible. It wasn't until somebody else would come in and help me fend off this guy. And so these people, again, I mean, we've known that the opposition are extremely violent, and we've seen the ways in which the police has worked hand in hand, so that people inside the embassy have no access to food or to anything that can allow for them to be sustainable. And so, I mean, it is extremely frustrating, and I feel like every day that passes by, we see the true side of things. Yeah. We see how anti-imperialist, anti-war activists are treated, and we can't accept that.
And you both were inside the embassy. Could you talk about what is the food that they have? What are they eating, if anything?
I mean, we have no access to electricity, so although we did have larger reserves of beans and rice, because we can't cook anything, that really does limit what you can actually eat. And so
it's anyone's guess, really.
It's anyone's guess.
I don't. They're probably getting creative. They're smart people in there. But yeah, we don't know what they have to eat. Well, obviously, they're not going to have a lot pretty soon. So.
But they're going hungry. They're essentially going hungry in there with support of the police.
And they're some of the most dedicated, strong-willed people I know. We've met. I trust that they're not going to leave just because they're hungry. They're not going to leave just because they get tired. They're going to keep going. So that's the thing is. The cops and the opposition, their agenda is murder. The State Department's agenda is murder. They want these people to suffer, and if they die, they die. Because, while they've said, we're not preventing food, the opposition has been very clear that their strategy is to prevent food, water from getting in. And the police, while they can't go in and arrest everyone, which they would love to do because it's illegal, it's a violation of the Vienna Convention, what they're doing instead is they're just saying, we'll let the opposition block food and water, and that'll do the same thing as arresting them. It'll get them out, or maybe they'll just die. But that's the thing. The people inside are not gonna leave. So the cops and the opposition, they're crazy if they think this strategy is gonna work. It's not gonna work. They're just creating a humanitarian crisis. Yeah. It's disgusting.
What is happening inside the Venezuela embassy serves as a microcosm for what sanctions have. What the impact of sanctions, within the people in Venezuela. The fact that it's the same thing. They cut out the electricity in Venezuela. They cut out the electricity in the embassy. They've prohibited access to food, to medicine. I mean, it is just disgusting in the ways that the State Department has been enacting human rights violations, and it's time that people start recognizing that for what it is.
What is your message to the American people?
We have no interest. We, the American people, 95, 97% of people in this country will not benefit from a war with Venezuela. Venezuela did not make the United States an equal country. It's not causing rents to go up. They didn't invade our country. They're not the enemy. It's corporate America. It's corporate greed. It's the same people that control the Trump administration, the ones that are making him go to Venezuela. They're the same people that want to privatize all of Venezuela's wealth and are telling Trump to go do that. Those are the same people that own all these luxury apartments. They're the same people that own Whole Foods. They're the same people that are gutting us every single day. Day by day, making us live paycheck to paycheck. It's the same capitalist class. So, the struggle here is the struggle in Venezuela. The struggle against poverty in Washington, D.C. means opposing war in Venezuela.
I that was perfectly said, yeah.
All right, we got to stand up and fight back. Thanks so much, Kay and Minta. Solidarity.
All right. That was Kay with the Answer Coalition and Aminta. They were helping on the ground out there, part of the Embassy Protection Collective. So that was a great interview. The oldie but goodie. Gave us a chance to share this into some police accountability groups before we get into some of these
And that's
stories.
not an unusual thing for the police and other government groups like the Secret Service to stand and watch neo-Nazi groups attack people,
right,
and then arrest the people that defend themselves. That's part of the reason for that is because if they weren't there, getting paid and in their magic uniforms, they would be out there with those neo-Nazis attacking people.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point to make for sure. All right. This is a quick clip of another method they tried to get food in that didn't work. I'll play this so I can share this into a couple more groups real quick.
Sir, that package is supposed to go to the embassy, right?
Yes.
And it's probably food for people who are hungry.
I don't know.
Why won't they let you deliver the package?
Well, I don't know what's inside of it, actually.
Who told you couldn't deliver the package?
Secret Service.
Secret Service will not let you deliver a package to food for people who are hungry.
I don't know if it's food.
Yeah, we know it's food. Are there places like this? Have you had this experience before where you're not allowed to deliver a package?
No.
No, thank you. So here you have another example of the Secret Service not allowing a package of food sent by Amazon. We also...
Yeah, so they had to get creative to try to get food in there. That was another method. They tried to, get it delivered by UPS, and they wouldn't let it that way either. So that was pretty crazy. I guess we'll dive into some of this police news. The first one that really went viral. Video shows cops holding pregnant mom family at gunpoint over a dollar toy. This was in Phoenix, Arizona. I don't have the video queued up, but I would definitely recommend heading over to the Mind Unleashed website, and they have the video from multiple angles of what happened to this family. Just the officers telling them to get out of the car, all because the daughter took a 99-cent toy out of the store. All the officers, guns drawn, get out of the fucking car, I'm gonna shoot you in the fucking face. Like, for a few minutes, and they're trying to tell them this door doesn't open, like, in their car, and I don't give a fuck, get out of the fucking car, blah, blah. And then at one point they try to, like, rip the child out of the mom's arms, and they're like, put the baby down. She's like, it's a baby, they can't even walk. Like, it was just really hard to watch. Definitely pissed me off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's, if you watch that video, the way they talk to him in the first place.
Yeah, it's just dirty, dude.
It's not, like, like, in the first place, why do you call the cops over a $1 toy that, you know, a kid didn't, like, consciously decide, I'm going to steal this? It's just a kid picking something up.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe their parents didn't notice, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like, you know.
Anyone with a kid, I mean, you don't even have to have a kid to know that happens, right? Yeah, man, it's crazy. The other viral story definitely have to talk about is this Costco shooting that happened in California. I forget the police department. But it was an off-duty officer that shot and killed a nonverbal man with intellectual disability. So it was a disabled person who was there with his parents. This off-duty cop shot him and actually shot his parents too. The family members, of course, are upset. You know, I've seen pictures of this family, and it's like, how do they look intimidating to you? How could you do something like this to this family? It's just unbelievable. Just really feel for this family. Sorry for their loss, and I hope the parents are doing all right. Just another example of off-duty cops. Doesn't matter if they're on duty or off duty. You know, there's that saying, cops are never truly off duty, so they will fucking kill you over some bullshit. And I believe their official line was that this disabled guy had attacked him or something. So who knows if he obviously wasn't wearing a body cam. Who knows if any surveillance footage will show up, but we all know Costco.
Yeah, I would say normally I would say like every store has a surveillance camera, but Costco's conveniently doesn't work sometimes.
Yeah, it doesn't work around police.
When they murdered Eric Scott, somehow that one video that would have shown what happened was malfunctioning that day.
Exactly. What's the name of that book? License to Kill or something? Yeah, so we're hoping to have the author of License to Kill, the story of Eric Scott, who was murdered out here in a Costco here in Las Vegas. It's a great book. Definitely check it out if you get a chance. But we're gonna hopefully have the author on to talk about that and maybe reach out to Eric Scott's father and see if he'd be willing to come on the show as well, because it's just a crazy.
I'm gonna do a review on it within the somewhat near future, and I just finished it, which took me way too long, but so Joey's doing it now, and
I just started reading it. It's really good.
Sometime
so far.
within the near future. I haven't contacted him yet to find out what his schedule is, but we'll have the author on there, and it's a very good book, and it's he was involved during the time that it was happening with Bill Scott, who's Eric Scott's father. So there's a lot of insight and inside details and things of that nature. So it's a really good book and worth reading.
Yeah, it's well sourced, a lot of detail, well researched. I mean, I knew a lot about this case before it happened, before reading this book, but I actually found out some new information from it. So it's good stuff. Hopefully we can make that happen, have the author on and Eric's dad as well. But yeah, that just ties into this story because the surveillance footage from that shooting magically disappeared from the Costco surveillance cameras.
Which is another reason why it shows that you should always film and not leave it up to these, body cams and surveillance of the stores and stuff, because you don't have control of that. Yeah. If you're filming, you have control of your own video.
Just like this Phoenix case, I mean, had there not been bystanders, who knows if this department is ever going to release the body cam footage, but probably not. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't. Since they didn't murder anybody, I guess they technically don't have to, so it would have just been the officer's word against this poor family. So always, even if it's not you covering your own ass, if you see police harassing somebody else, man, break out the camera. I'm sure the family was grateful for whoever decided to film this interaction so that they have a case, they can argue and have some evidence. There's a lot of other stories in here, so let's dive into these. Deputy arrested for forcing mom into sexually abusing 1-year-old son and recording it. PNAC, photography is not a crime. They've been putting out a lot of good articles lately. Newsmaven.io. Check it out. This was Louisiana. This was a victory for sure. Scott Warren, for people who aren't familiar, he's an activist out of Arizona with the No More Deaths, I think it's called. It's like a humanitarian organization, a bunch of activists who help migrants who are, traveling through the desert. Yeah. Oftentimes without water or food, so they'll go out and leave.
Yeah, and that's
water.
That's what they do is they go out and leave water at strategic places where they know people travel through, and then the Border Patrol goes out and not only destroys that and pours out the water. And there was a group of them who were arrested for doing that.
Mm-hmm. And I think, wasn't it felonies charges or something?
Yeah.
And I mean, they carried hefty prison sentences and fines and stuff. And they took it to court and they won. So here, it was a hung jury is what happened. That's so definitely a victory for humanity, and glad that Scott Warren's not going to go to jail for leaving water for people who die
might die without water.
Unbelievable, yeah. Body of Army veteran who died in jail turns up with no throat, heart, and brain. So this was a story that went viral. Again, a veteran who dies in custody, and the official police line was, I forget what it was, but they, didn't say anything about a struggle or, them beating him or... But my guess is if his body is returned with no throat, that it was probably a chokehold or, asphyxiation related death. But he was missing organs and stuff, very suspicious. That was a crazy story. This one too, again from The Mind Unleashed. Kind of a similar humanitarian theme. These are activists who go out on boats. I believe it's in the Mediterranean to save, refugees who are on those little dinghies, they call them, those janky little boats. Yeah. And they'll be loaded down with just so many people that they are overturning all the time, and people, bodies wash up on the shores. People die in those waters, so they will go out and try to save people's lives. Children, men, women, children.
And it's not an uncommon theme because, when you look at the treatment of the homeless people, they want to starve them into submission. So they want to make it so that it's so dangerous to do something that you won't want to do it. But at the same time, people are desperate, and that's why they're doing it. And then, you're basically sentencing somebody to death for self-preservation.
It's like when they write tickets for, sharing food with the homeless, or... they try to criminalize it to deter people from trying to help these individuals. Exactly. So, sea rescues have been criminalized as German boat captain faces 20 years in prison for saving refugees. This is a win. Hopefully it'll pass. New Oregon bill would allow black people to sue folks who make frivolous 911 calls with racist intent. So you got Barbecue Becky over here. There's just been,
which, by the way, is illegal to call 911 without it being an emergency.
Dude, there's just been so many this. It seemed like this past year has just been unbelievable with just stupid reasons for calling the cops. Permit Patty, and I forget all the other funny names. I think it's cool, all the creative names that people come up with, the hashtags.
I think they're running out at this point because there's so many of them. It's hard to come up with a new name.
It's just, man, you got to understand that underneath it all, when you call over some dumb shit, you literally could cost somebody their life.
Yeah, and that's actually a good point to make because, these cops show up with guns, and especially if you're, a black person or person of color, and you don't bow and scrape to them, you could actually end up being killed.
Yep.
And it's because you had a barbecue when, there's a sign saying you're not supposed to have a barbecue.
Yeah. I mean, of course, police show up and kill people of all colors, but in particular with regard to this article, well, not this one, but this one we were just talking about, I mean, it's usually white women calling on, black males or just black people in general over the dumbest shit. Or just people of color. Like there was one, the most recent one that I can think of was a guy that was a Mexican guy, and because he was speaking Spanish or something, she called the cops, telling her to bring ICE out there and shit. Just, racist ass motherfuckers. This was a crazy story too. Male student poses as girl to catch sexual predator and nabs a police officer. That's the Snapchat filter. For people who don't know, there's like that new Snapchat filter that'll turn like a guy to a girl or a girl to a guy. And so he used that picture to like
That's
lure
funny.
somebody and acted like he was underage, and got him. Reeled in a police officer.
Cop came in to protect him.
Yeah. Sacramento pays $5.2 million in a lawsuit claiming cops beat tased man into coma. And then, it's Sacramento pays it, not the police officers. So it's taxpayer money.
Yeah, when they say Sacramento pays that means you do.
Yeah.
If you live in Sacramento. It doesn't
Exactly.
mean the city or the police actually themselves pay it.
Yeah. Crooked cop in NYPD's gun license division sentenced to 1 year in prison. I forget. It's been a while since I posted this. I forget the details.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's the same one, but they had a big scandal not too long ago where they were selling, because it's really hard to get a permit in New York to carry a gun, and they were basically like just giving them to people in exchange for a bribe. One of them was the Hasidic Jews in a certain neighborhood. They were just paying off the cops, and they would give them the permits with basically just hand it to them, so they didn't have to
Gotcha.
jump through any of the hoops that everybody else has to jump through.
Oh, okay. So let me see here. I got the article pulled up. See if this is the same one you're talking about. Year and 1 day in prison for bribery and conspiracy. Accepting gifts and money to push through firearms permits. Yep, that's the one. I don't know, because he looked like a chomo, so I wasn't sure, like, maybe he was,
Doesn't mean he's not. He could be both.
Good point. This is the one we talked about, so the Free Thought Project also covered it. They have been banging out articles too, not just photography is not a crime, but the Free Thought Project is always a great police accountability news source. TheFreeThoughtProject.com. Tons of stories. This is a really good article too. I mean, shitty that it happened, but it was a good article. They have the news, local news coverage linked to it as well, worth watching. But basically, it was a high school party at like Crystal Palace that we have out here. It's just a skating rink, and a couple hundred kids showed up. I don't know if it was like an end of year party or something. Yeah, last day of school at a skating rink until militarized Euclid SWAT team showed up and began shooting them with pepper spray. So they had these guns that look like paintball guns, but they shoot pepper balls, and they just lit these kids up, and it was all bad. But definitely recommend reading this. Now they're targeting the shopkeep because the guy who owns the skate rink, spoke out against police. So now they're going after him and trying to get him shut down. It's crazy.
Yeah. So there's gonna be no skating in Euclid.
Right. Where's he? Oh, Euclid, Ohio. Okay. Yeah. We also shared this story on our page, so you can find this. Whoops. You can find this on our page. Veterans Affairs. Police literally body slammed veterans, killing some of them. So these are Veterans Affairs police officers that are at like VA hospitals. And there was recent congressional testimony showing, referencing several cases where they just brutalized these vets. One guy had just had like a spinal surgery, and he's telling them, like, right, I can't breathe, I just had spinal surgery, and they're fucking slamming him, throwing, twisting his arm and shit. And so this was a good article worth checking out. Fucking bastards. Police brutality. I think there's only a couple more. Oh, yeah. So this was, I believe, Willie McCoy. Yeah, that's the one where the guy was in the car, right? At the Taco Bell drive-thru. Recent one in Vallejo, I believe, California. They shot him 55 times, and the investigation called it reasonable. Just fucking disgusting. And that's why people do stuff like this. Memphis protesters hurl bricks and rocks at police, wounding 24 officers in outcry over man's death.
Yeah. The thing is, they never, like, connect those two things. Like, they never think, like, if we didn't shoot somebody 55 times, people wouldn't be throwing bricks and rocks at us. Instead, they're like, no, we need to shoot more people because people are throwing rocks at us.
Injured 36 officers. Not bad. I mean, I think we could put up better numbers, but not bad. I just want to look for the victim of the shootings.
I think
name.
people should go back to slings. That's my thing is, slings. It's a lot more accuracy with those.
Right. Slingshots.
I am an angel. You are a...
So, 20-year-old Brandon Weber.
I don't mean slingshots. I mean like the old school, Goliath and...
Oh, okay. All right. We could do that.
Moving down fast, That shows you.
Shows you they work?
Yeah.
Brandon Weber. So I think there's another article up here we're going to get to about him. This was a Rikers Island inmate who died in jail, who didn't have to, had, this bail reform bill passed where, people would get, like out here, that you get OR, you get released on your own recognizance, with a promise to, show up to your next court date. So this was a $500 bail. This woman, who I believe is a trans woman, and we see this all the time, that this is a very vulnerable minority in prisons. She was sent to Rikers Island because she couldn't pay a $500 bail. Now she's dead. 27-year-old transgender woman, Laylene Polanco. I believe it was like a assault charge or something that she had a warrant for, something like that. I don't remember the details, but yeah, $500. It's fucking crazy. St. Paul Police Department chief announces termination of 5 officers over significant policy violations. But it's just a few bad apples. 76 times. Damn, so Willie McCoy was 55. They're like, we got to beat those numbers. 76 bullet wounds from police guns. The DA is asking why. Okay, the DA will ask why, and then fucking... Oh, okay. That's it. Nobody will get charged.
He'll accept whatever answer he gets. That's the problem.
Right. Handcuffed Houston man whose injury was captured on video headed for trial against police on civil rights violation. HoustonChronicle.com if you want to read more about that. NYDailyNews.com. 10-year-old Maryland boy with disabilities questioned by police after playing with toy money on bus. You can't even fucking carry around Monopoly money anymore without fucking getting harassed in this police state. This was a crazy story. It's kind of like a Gary Webb type of thing. VPD officer dies by suicide after filing report against 2 senior officers. Yeah, I'm sure that's just a coincidence, She was killed. She was murdered for sure. This next story, yeah, we talked about this one. Almost there. 27-year-old Edwin Stamps killed by police in Inglewood. We talked about that one. NYPD union lawyers claim Eric Gardner would have died anyway due to obesity.
Yeah. He died eventually.
Well, yeah, we all fucking die eventually, right? Fuck.
It's a coincidence that they were choking him at the time he was dying of obesity.
It's the same thing with Tashi Brown, you know. Well, you know, he would have died anyways, but the reality is, had all of these individuals never
he was
had
also
an encounter,
smoking, so I mean his lungs probably.
he would have died of cancer eventually.
Right.
It's like, fuck, dude. But they're literally trying to claim that he would have died right then and right there, even if the police officer wasn't there. Like, that's when he was gonna die, right there. Like, we just happened to be there with our arm around his throat, you know.
Yeah.
It was obesity was the cause of death.
Predict these things.
Fuck. Like, how do you argue that shit with a straight face? Like, it's just fucking crazy. Same thing with Tashi Brown Farmer out here. They tried to say it was, you know, his arteries and his heightened, state he was in. It's like, dude, get the fuck out of here. Like, had none of these people ran into police officers those days,
he
they would
ate a
have been
meal
killed.
that was high in cholesterol.
Yeah.
You know, earlier that day.
He would have died.
To be
right
fair.
then and there. It's just so silly, dude. It fucking pisses me off. This video pissed me off too, watching this. Like, all of these officers in Hawthorne, California. This guy's on his knees, just, I gotta give it up to dude who just took it like a champ. You know, had patience, listened, didn't make a wrong move. Like, it takes a lot when there's that many officers all pointing guns at you. You hear shotguns clicking in the back. You get your bean bags, and they've all got their ARs and handguns and all pointed at you. For fucking nothing, dude. And thankfully, he survived the encounter. And
what was he? He was like jaywalking or something.
And thankfully, I forget what initiated it, but thankfully, this woman was filming, and you gotta watch the video. So this is on Yahoo.com, originally from the Huffington Post, but. A woman in LA area is being praised for filming police as they confronted a black man with their guns drawn while he knelt and his hands above his head. Like, she literally possibly saved his life.
My name is William, not suspect.
Don't move! Don't move!
He ended up being arrested. I don't know, so that doesn't say why. It really doesn't matter, dude, because it was bullshit the way that they handled it. Like, totally escalating the situation to the point where they're just fucking hoping, you know? Just hoping he makes a wrong move so they can light him up. We talked about the Costco. Yeah, that's everything. Cool. So that looks like that's it for today's show. Solidarity Not Charity has a couple events coming up. The 24th of this month, it's a Monday. We're going to be sharing, I believe, at 2 p.m. on Fourmaster at the Care Complex. If you'd like to donate money, you can message the page Water and Solidarity. If you want to donate time, pair of hands, and help out, you can show up and help us out. If you've got waters or food or anything, just reach out to us. We'd love to try to set up either a drop-off or we'll try and come pick it up. Also, 4th of July, we're going to do a share down there as well. But we're going to try to do a weekly share every Friday at the Care Complex. So we're going to need all hands on deck for that. If anybody would like to start getting involved, we'd really appreciate it. Or anybody that wants to donate. We are a 501c3 now, so you can write off any donations Even if you're a business, or if you work for a grocery store and you want to try to set something up, instead of throwing away all that food, help us rescue some more food. Get it into food's bellies instead of a landfill, you know. Other events, let me check real quick. Free monthly farmers market, Saturday, June 29th. If you know anybody that could use some free food, it's at the Southgate Learning and Resource Center. Saturday, June 29th, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. That's on 6620 West Katy Avenue. Free food, pretty cool. That's about it for this month. Everything else is next month. This event next month that Kelly and I will be attending. If you want to join us, we're trying to get a group together to roll together. Anarcho Vegas, July 19th to 21st. Use promo code ACAB at checkout and you'll get 10% off. Should be pretty cool. I mean, there's a lot of ANCAPs I can't stand, but a few of these individuals I've personally met, and they're really cool. I'm really looking forward to the independent media panel that they're going to have. Ford Fisher, who does great work. Carrie Wedler, I don't know if she's libertarian or an ANCAP, but either way, still like 99% of the stuff that she says in her videos resonates with me as an anarchist. So Justin King, who's I think is more left, but I'd like to interview him just to pin down what his ideology is exactly. But he's been putting out a lot of videos. Bo of the Fifth Column.
Didn't he recently just come out as an anarchist? Make a big announcement.
I don't know. I don't know. Like I always assumed he was, but he's been putting some good videos out, and the way he does it is in a way to target those on the right to get them to think about things differently. You know, a lot of pro-immigration stuff and open borders type of stuff, and just all kinds of philosophy based, trying to get people to think outside of the way that they normally think. So looking forward to seeing him, talking to him.
That's at the D, right?
They changed the location, so they said once you buy your tickets, they'll let you know the new location. But the D canceled on them because of Larkin Rose. So Larkin Rose is one of the speakers, and I guess he's on a watch list, federal watch list. So
it's not the pedicab controversy.
No. Just to clear that up, no. But Larkin Rose, he's another ANCAP, well, voluntarist.
Too dangerous for the D.
Yeah. Too dangerous. I like that. He's still got some stuff that I can really get behind, like his stuff about police. Shit, what probably landed him on that watch list is that article and video he did about when it's okay to kill the police. So that was really good. He's going to be there. He's also going to be doing his Candles in the Dark event separately that weekend. So you can get tickets for that. That's like a good event to learn how to talk to status.
Like a Phil Collins song?
I don't know. But it's supposed to... He has like ways of communicating to statists in a way that they don't get defensive, so that you can be more effective at communicating and hopefully converting them to anarchism.
I think they're still going to get defensive.
Yeah, who knows? That's why I'm interested to see what he has to say. If I can scrounge the money together, I'm definitely going to go. But yeah, should be a cool event, Anarcho Vegas. I mean, and then if you're into cryptocurrencies, they're going to have a crypto panel. I'm not really into all that, but these people apparently know what they're talking about, so hopefully you can get some pointers there.
Bitcoin is on the rebound.
Oh, shit. All right, well, I'm going to play us out, Kelly. Anything else?
What does that mean?
What is it, like end the show? Like end?
Yeah, there's no
Fuck
word.
it.
There's no words here.
Fuck it, we'll do it live. I gotta cue that up so that people know what we're talking about when we do that.
That's my favorite part, that he doesn't know what that means.
Yeah.
Like, you can't figure it out. Even if you never heard it before, it's kind of, you'd think you'd figure that out.
All right, here's a song from So Below. Enjoy. And Philip Lerma.
Technically, we're not doing this live. This is recorded.
This is a conscious revolution. Heaven as we stand, feeling environment. Oh, 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 yeah. Doing what we can. Cause I am you, and you are me. We can solve all of these mysteries. I am you, and you are me. We can solve all of these mysteries. Solve all of these mysteries, yeah. This is a conscious revolution, and there's a current so fast. Will you grow? Cause so we left in the past. The movie's moving, the time to grow new grass. The problem is failed, we need a whole new cast. Cause it's not that man up in every border. To belong to the children of our sons and daughters. The earth is the mother and the skies the father and the stars of the children. We are all the poor. So in the end it comes down to you and me. We put our stories together for a beautiful read. I think we take for granted the beauty we could achieve with unity. Going together so fluently. So shine your light like a beautiful sun. Thousand candles brighter than one, yeah. Wise man, not as one. But it's beautiful amongst them. And it's got to revolution, yeah. Heaven as we stand, in environment. Whoa, oh yeah. Doing what we can. Cause I am, and you are me. It's all of these mysteries. Cause I am, and you are me. We can solve all of these mysteries. Yeah. We can solve all of these mysteries. Yeah. Well, I wait for and more each day. Clairvoyance is my answer to love. Melodies, heavenly picture leaves on the dream. But I'm a lead shade, so blissfully. Like to breathe, yeah, through the trees. Well, everything must pass. But remember, at this moment, this is the key to make it a list. This is the conscious evolution. Heaven as we stand, healing environment. Oh, oh yeah. Doing what we can. Cause I am you, and you are me. We can solve all of these mysteries. Cause I am you, and you are me. We can solve all of these mysteries. We can solve all of these mysteries. Yeah. This is a conscious revolution.